Hello, hello, and happy Tuesday once again. Welcome back to Heart and Mind with Dr. Dina McMillan. And yes, I'm Dr. Dina McMillan, and boy, is this show going to be really important. I tell you all the time, and I'll probably repeat this because people join us one by one, but I've been getting so many comments and questions about this specific topic, something that I actually covered a year ago, that I decided it was worth talking about again. So, welcome to Brainwashing 2.0 as we go through the devious tactics that are being used in a hyper-connected world. Now, again, welcome on Tuesdays. I picked Tuesday because if you look at restaurants often have the cheapest prices on Tuesdays, and they have special deals to try to lure you in. Most of us don't do anything on Tuesday because it's still too early in the week. We still have too much of the work week left. But here's a way to do something where you learn something every single week that you can immediately apply to improve your life. And we're on every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. And if you're in California, like my home state, if you're in California or the Pacific Coast, you're probably still leaving work or you're still at work, so you can listen. Just have the audio on as you drive home. Again, if you are not able to make it live, now live is great because you can sign in on whatever platform you're watching the show, and you can actually ask me questions or make comments while we're going along and get immediate response. But if you're not able to make it live, and I do understand that, or if you find a show interesting enough to watch again, you can easily find the recordings. I post them on my X feed at Dr. Dina 1. That's DRDINA with the number 1. And of course, I'll mention it again at the end of the show. Or you can go on Daily Clout, or you can go on Rumble, or even on YouTube, and you can find all of the episodes. So, why is this show so different? It is not a brag. There are a lot of great shows. I have to tell you, Rumble and Daily Clout and iHeart have wonderful shows that I watch all the time. But this is the only show where we take social psychology, which is the study of how the brain works. So we study learning, we study influence and persuasion, manipulation, coercion, indoctrination, and yes, brainwashing. We study power dynamics. So these are things that are having an active part in all of our lives, but nobody's really pointing it out to you, and they're certainly not showing you how you can protect yourself and your loved ones from these tactics. That's what this show is about. It's not about me sounding interesting. It's about me sharing information from the academic ivory tower, from the journal articles that are all written in jargon, so very hard to understand if you haven't specialized in this field, translating that information for everyday people. And I hope you will come and join me. I have a comment already. Let me see who's here. Frank is here. No Excuse Tuesday. He said, besides, there's plenty of ice and snow still here in New York City. Oh my goodness, you definitely have my sympathies. Now, when we're talking about being clever, being smart, not being fooled, that's what this show is about. Giving you information that most other people don't have. They're walking along oblivious. You don't want to be a sheeple. So you want to watch this show and you want to get this book. Dr. Naomi Wolf, Amy Kelly, a whole crew of people spend an enormous amount of time taking the Pfizer studies, the Pfizer documents that they went to court to try to keep secret for 75 years. Dr. Wolf and her crew took those papers and they did what I do here every week, and that is take them and just translate them into plain English so you could understand what was really being done to us, what's still being done to us by Big Pharma. Because keep in mind, no matter how much they find about the vaccines, the COVID-19 vaccines, the flu vaccines, whatever, go to any pharmacy and they're still offering them. They're not illegal anywhere. Nobody who put those toxic substances in our bodies has gone to jail. So we need to know as much as possible. And I say our bodies, I refused it. And I tell you what, why did I refuse it? Because of the kind of information that I share with you on this show and in my work, my in-person and online work as a social psychologist, with my domestic violence work, with my Unmasking the Abuser program. I have a program and I also have a podcast. And I tell everyone that tunes into the program, this isn't just going to tell you about romantic relationships. You're going to be able to see tactics of unfair influence, persuasion, and manipulation, regardless of what the source is. So you're going to be able to spot it when other people try to take advantage of you. I think that's so important. But so is this. Please support the work of the Daily Cloud in getting key information to the public. Just go on Amazon and get your own copy of the Pfizer papers. Now, today's topic, super, super important. And I'm going to mention this again. As I said, people sign on little by little. So sometimes I have to repeat myself. This show is so important. And I spent so much effort preparing it. And I want to really talk about these topics. I really want to go into the details with these topics. So if we don't get to everything today, we'll just finish next week, because this show is only approximately an hour. But that's a lot of time to get really key knowledge into your head. We're going to talk about Brainwashing 2.0. We're talking about how our environments are indoctrinating us, and a lot of the ways that the new methods that are being used. Last time we talked about classic methods, and they're still working too. They're still being used. But we're also going to talk about how technology is contributing to this. So this is really key. So please stay with us. Take a drive through any major city after sunset, and you'll notice something strange. Dark windows, empty offices. Right now, 1 in 5 commercial buildings in America is sitting vacant, and nearly $1 trillion in real estate loans are coming due this year. If those buildings stay empty, the banks take the hit, and those are the same banks where your retirement savings are likely to sit. There's a new free report called The Ghost Tower Signal that breaks it all down. It uncovers 7 early warning signs that showed up before every major crash since 1929. All 7 are active again right now. This won't make the evening news, but it could help you protect your savings from what's coming. Download it free at cloutgold.com. or call 855-803-GOLD to get your copy mailed to you. That's cloutgold.com or call 855-803-GOLD. Now, please know if you're a little nervous about talking about indoctrination and brainwashing, which is basically really deep, unfair influence. It goes so deep that you feel that it's something that you chose. The important part about brainwashing, about indoctrination, is that it's sneaky. It goes deeply. It starts affecting your emotions, your life choices, and it doesn't normally stand out as something that someone else has done to you, although that's where it comes from. Um, a Bulging Battery 2050 said if they released 100% of the fully unredacted Epstein files, it could set in motion a chain of events that could end with the total extinction of the entire human species. Well, I don't know if that's the case. And we can talk about the Epstein files on another episode because it is really important what came out with that. But today we're going to be talking about how to get these people out of your head, out of your heart, out of your life. And brainwashing really matters. It's not tinfoil hat. In fact, if you're part of the Daily Cloud audience or the Rumble audience, you've probably been accused by at least somebody in your family, friends, work colleagues of being someone who wears a tinfoil hat, or they called you a conspiracy theorist. And then as the evidence starts to pile up showing that you were actually correct, you can sit there and look smug, although they may not forgive you. One of the problems we have is that being right doesn't get people to say, hey, that was smart. Guess what you did? Often they'll get angry with you. So we can talk about that in another episode too. What do you do when you're picking this stuff up early? Because I've been picking up information early and correctly since I became a social psychologist, and it's gotten me in a lot of trouble. Some people get really angry with me because they want me to play along. You know, the whole go along to get along? But keep in mind, brainwashing is deep. It goes deep in your head. And Frank said something that's true. Being right can put you in danger. Yes. But brainwashing matters. It's not about tinfoil hats. It's emotional, psychological, and cultural manipulation. And we are all being subjected to it in our lives. Why does it work? It's not because you're stupid, okay? Brainwashing, indoctrination exploits our wired brains. It's the way our brains are programmed. The people who do it know how the brain works, and they craft really clever tactics and ploys that work along with the way your brain works. So you have to be really careful. That's why I said I have to teach you how to protect yourself. Just teaching you what's going on is not enough. And it causes anxiety, division, and lost autonomy. Being indoctrinated and brainwashed, you're no longer your own person. You are being directed about what to feel, what to do, how to behave, everything by someone else. And here's something really important for my very smart audience. Brainwashing does not override intelligence. You can be as bright as you please. That won't help you. It bypasses it. When we do the episodes that I've promised you, I'm going to do some simple episodes on the brain that I do in person when I'm training people with regard to domestic violence prevention, or we're doing the Healing the Rift anti-bias training. You have to know basically how the brain works, both so you understand how the tactics works, but also how to protect yourself, how to spot it in other people, just basics on how the brain works, nothing too complicated. But often people think they're safe because they're really intelligent. I have 3 university degrees, including 2 from Stanford University. I have a master's and a doctorate at Stanford, and this is before any of the universities were giving out doctorates in gender studies. So this is real education that I have, and I know I'm smart enough to know I'm just as vulnerable as you are, because the part of my brain that's been trained in this isn't the part of the brain that these tactics work on. They just go right past it if I let it. I don't want to do it in my life. I don't want to let it in my life. And I don't want it in yours. How does it get there? It gets there through emotions and primal drives. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But the more emotionally invested you are in a topic, the easier you are to manipulate. I don't care how smart you are. In fact, I keep telling people, the more you use your emotions to make your life choices and decisions, the easier it is for someone else to control you. And that's why we talk about all the tactics of losing some of that vulnerability so it doesn't happen. Now, is this making you think? I know it makes me think when I hear this stuff. Yeah, we've got a lot to talk about today. Wall Street doesn't want you paying attention to this, so listen up. Right now, China controls 98% of the world's gallium supply. Never heard of gallium? That's the point. It's the critical material behind next generation semiconductors, and Beijing has been using it as leverage in the global tech war. But here's the twist. A tiny American company just developed breakthrough gallium nitride, or GaN, technology that could make China's grip irrelevant. Silicon chips, they've hit a wall. Even NVIDIA's CEO says Moore's law is dead, but GaN chips use up to 40% less energy, charge 3 times faster, and can deliver dramatically higher performance than traditional silicon. And this small US firm, they hold 250 American patents on this tech. Now, major global brands, including NVIDIA, Samsung, Dell, Lenovo, and LG, are already partnering with them. This isn't about politics. It's about better technology winning. An investing expert just released an urgent presentation explaining why the next 12 months could be critical and how regular investors can discover the name of this under-the-radar company before the wider market catches on. Watch the full briefing now at ganrevolution.com. That's capital G, small a, capital N, capital R, evolution.com. ganrevolution.com. Please don't miss it. Now, if you're just joining us, the reason you need to know about brainwashing, often people get attracted to this topic because they look at other people in their lives and say, yeah, they're being influenced either by an individual or by the system as a whole. Oh, yeah, it's happening to them. And they don't see it in themselves. I want all of us to have open eyes so that we can not only identify the tactics, so that we can protect ourselves. If you believe you're immune to manipulation, you're already the ideal subject. And it's not just here. When I do my training for unmasking the abuser, which is still the only credible, effective, targeted program for domestic violence prevention in the world, I have a whole section on the savvy chicks, the independent women, the women who think I'm too smart to get caught. I have to really work to open their eyes so that they can see that overconfidence makes them extremely vulnerable. We're all vulnerable to this. And technology, the technology in our devices has supercharged brainwashing, making it personalized and pervasive. You notice when I put the ad up about this, I talked about the fact that your feed on your phone or on your computer probably knows you better than your friends. It starts predicting what you'll want. And this started years ago with Amazon giving you recommendations based on an algorithm according to what you bought. And now people have even noticed if they use the voice activation on their phone, that they'll make a comment about something in conversation with someone, and then they'll look on their phone and they'll have ads there. We're going to have to talk about why this isn't a good thing. You might think, oh, good, it's specializing to tell me what I want. No, it's controlling your mind. We all need to be careful about this. And with AI, misinformation surges, AI advances, including deep fakes, This topic is more urgent than ever. Before we start talking about the algorithmic echo chambers and micro targeting, I want to have a friend of mine. You've met her before if you watched the show. Melinda Richards is an influencer and successful author and businesswoman from Queensland, Australia. And she always has some really interesting, in fact, I get some of my topics from her. She always has really interesting input on all of this. You can follow her on X as well. Melinda, let's talk about all of this because this is so relevant to people's lives. And as I said, I've been repeatedly asked about various aspects of this for the last week. It's been driving me crazy. So
Hello.
you see behind her is sunlight. Okay, it is summer in Australia. While
it's hot too.
In the US,
it's hot today. Yeah.
I remember heat.
How are you?
At least it's not cold like New York. So
I know. Yeah, they're struggling. Look, Dina, this topic is it's just a topic after my own heart because, during the nightmare of 2.5 years between 2020 and 2022, I was never as upset with the government and what they were doing to us and the doctors making lots of money and the media telling people lies. I wasn't as upset with that as I was. I mean, of course I was really upset with it, but I was most upset and mortified and horrified at the time that everyone or most people fell for it. I mean, that was the big, and I think for us lay people, us non-psychologists, us non-psychiatrists, I mean, we're people that just really had the veil lifted in 2020 with how easy it is to brainwash and manipulate a whole population. It's actually extraordinary to me.
Well, and what happens too is that right now, I know that if you push like on any of the, or sit and watch any of the little videos on Facebook, on X or whatever, it starts sending you more and more content that aligns with that. Now, while you may say to yourself, oh, that's great, I get to see more of my interests, that's actually dangerous because it reinforces, if it's biased material, they'll send you more biased material. So it's just going to reinforce it and make it seem like it has more evidence. It creates a bubble where you get no dissent. Now,
it's positive reinforcement, isn't it? It's reinforcing your current beliefs, and we're all susceptible to that, as you said earlier. But I think it's now become such a dangerous game. This global manipulation and this whole idea that social media and these algorithms are at such an intense global level. And I mean, they even talked about it this morning on, I listened to a commercial radio station because my daughter likes to do a quiz on it. And as part of the news, they were talking about this phenomenon of this poor little monkey who was put into this pen in Japan. And this poor little monkey has this soft toy. I think the zoo's culpable. I was not manipulated by this at all. I never thought the whole situation was cute. I would never go to the zoo and fraternize and patronize a place that was basically torturing a baby monkey that was rejected by its mother. It should never be in that pen. It was being bullied, and for weeks, of course. And so this poor little thing, and I felt so sorry for it, but everyone thought it was cute. And now everyone's going out and buying the monkey toy. And now they can't keep up with sales of the monkey toy. And now this zoo, which was this tiny little zoo in the middle of wherever in Japan, is now, well, they can't keep up with demand because everyone wants to go and see this poor little tortured monkey. And it's like, guys, can you not actually see what's happening from the animal kingdom perspective? This is actually horrifying. But you see, because the monkey's holding a soft toy, there's this whole kind of mass brainwashing around, oh, look at this, and oh, they're bullying, but we need to go and say, and it's like that took about 4 days for it to go global. And for everyone to talk about it. And then all of a sudden monkey toys were going up in sales, and then there was selling. It's like, that's how quick the phenomenons happen now through social media. It's this global phenomenon where you can tell people a story and they will believe it, and then it goes global, and then you've got the whole world thinking something. And I mean, we know that it can happen because of COVID. We get that. But it hasn't really rectified itself since COVID. Not at all.
No, because it's human nature. It's a phenomenon called social proof, and it is hardwired into our brain to want to do things to follow the crowd, to do, one of the ways. That's why when advertisers say we can't keep up with the sales of this is selling out. Everybody wants this. I remember watching in daytime TV when 50 Shades of Grey came out, and they had it all over morning TV for, something for moms and something for married women. And
I know, right? And it went off. It was a phenomenon.
It sold millions. And it was about a psychopathic guy that happened to be handsome and rich in an abusive relation, an emotionally abusive, coercively controlled relationship with a woman. And they were selling it. It's so sexy. And because everybody kept using the exact same words, and we're going to talk about that too, and presenting it from a certain perspective, social proof came riding into our brains, and everybody subconsciously felt, I have to examine this from that same perspective. And yes, it can happen on a smaller level too. I believe that whole toilet paper run that we had during COVID started in Australia. There was something going on in China. Now, people don't know this, but Australia has a large Chinese population. And something happened in China where there was a problem with toilet paper. So you had all of these Chinese shoppers with huge trolleys, carts to you and me, filled with toilet paper. The Australians looked at it and said, oh my God, something's wrong, that there's no more toilet paper. So they started buying it up, and everybody was putting it online. And before you know it, we had all the English-speaking countries, everybody was hoarding toilet paper.
We fought harder for toilet paper than we did for our freedom in Australia. It's something to be proud of. I mean, people were literally fighting each other in the supermarkets. I mean, it got to the stage where, corner stores, chemists, anyone selling general goods, Bunnings, anybody, just got toilet paper in to try and keep up with the demand. I know a person who shall remain nameless who started to stockpile toilet paper in his garage, and it was this phenomenon about toilet paper. And it was interesting too, because everyone was saying at the time, well, why not like batteries or flashlights, or maybe, I don't know, bread or water. Maybe why not water? Like, hello, water is fairly important, but it was only toilet paper. And so that told me, once again, phenomenon that was going on with people's behavior. I mean, not only were people going mental over, lockdowns and masking and jabbing and staying inside and but they were going mental over all of the things, the side things around the ideology of COVID, because it turned from being medicine into ideology. It turned into, well, if you're this type of person, then you believe in jabbing yourself, 4 or 5 times. You believe in locking yourself away and putting a mask on. And then all of a sudden it became like a sort of a religious ideology rather than something that was supposed to be about science and medicine. And the toilet paper thing it was just that icing on the cake for me, that it was like, how can you be so, I mean, people that I knew and respected, and this is what you were saying earlier about intelligence, was stockpiling toilet paper, not only in their garages, but I had other friends that were stockpiling it in their bathrooms and in cupboards, and, putting it on Facebook. Oh, if anyone needs any toilet paper, I've started collecting it. And it then became a cultural phenomenon that Australia was leading the pack in. How humiliating, really, for a country.
Well,
it was so horrendous.
But yeah, It's even gotten worse because as the deep fakes and AI have gotten worse. And what happens is often a lot of the social media will actually form articles and things, making them look real, form pictures, making them look real to go along with the mindset that you have so that you get
Yes.
more loyal to that platform, so that the people that are on that platform with you become more important to your life. And so you're more likely to buy anything they try to sell you. We are in a really scary time. And Frank Brescia says here, he bought a dozen rolls of toilet paper at the start of the COVID scam. Yes. And he also says they know how to pull our strings. Yes, they do. And I do too, which is why I'm telling you how to see what they're doing. I don't want us to be influenced by nonsense and crap. And we have to be very careful. Here's another thing, cognitive dissonance exploitation. I've had so many people who don't right now. I know Elon doesn't need the money, okay? But right now, X is the only news source that I know of that will actually tell you what's really going on. Because if they put out something that's not true, people put community notes with evidence that disputes what they say. Everybody else, they will have a news source. They will all use the same script. They will present things from a certain perspective. We have talked before about why I bother to put all of these slides together. It's a lot of effort for me every week. But because of the picture superiority effect, you are more likely to remember the information if it has an image, and they know it too. So they're putting together fake images. You constantly see these signs about so-and-so is a fascist, so-and-so is a Nazi, so-and-so is, they use the same labels and terms. And they also do everything they can to prevent people who are on their side. I'm talking extremists of any side, okay? They do everything they can to keep their followers from experiencing cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance, as we mentioned, is when you come up against evidence that something you believe is not right, is not correct, is incorrect. So how are you? It makes you uncomfortable, and depending on how indoctrinated you are, it can actually be physical. It can give you a headache. It can make your hands start shaking. It can make your heart race. It can make you feel like you got punched in the stomach. So these people don't want their followers to experience that. So they keep them in a bubble, a protective bubble of misinformation and lies and deception and fake imagery. And I mean, I look at some of the studies, people are like, oh, this study says that. And I'm not talking about recently. I'm talking about even 10 years ago, 15 years ago, seeing studies about family structure, because a lot of the people who were left progressive didn't like the fact that the traditional family structure is more likely to produce emotionally healthy kids that have a solid employment history. So they started presenting all these alternative families and putting up really bad research, claiming it was just as healthy as a traditional family. But unfortunately for them, 7 out of my 9 years of university were spent learning research methodology and research assessment and statistical analysis. So I'm looking and I'm blowing that study up and it's like, no, that's not what it says. That study would not hold water.
Yeah.
Why do they do that? Because they are touting a set of beliefs and they don't want their followers to feel uncomfortable. So if you go to the modern university where 99% of the professors are left progressive, and that's in Australia too, and that's in the UK too, that's in Canada too, not just the US. They do everything they can to only have the students exposed to one type of information that supports their narrative. And they will use the fakest information they have. But the problem is, if you never come up against opposition, You don't know how to handle it. That's why so many times when independent journalists go out and ask people questions, or even with, look what happened to Charlie Kirk. When people come up against solid evidence that they are incorrect, they cannot handle it. And many of them will get aggressive and violent. Now, what we're talking about today, and again, as I said, don't worry about the time thing. We will cover some of this next week. I don't think we'll get through it all, but it's key information. Now, if you have time, go on Daily Clout, Rumble, or YouTube and look at episode 50, where some of the tactics and brainwashing were covered on that episode. So we're going to not only talk about that, we're going to talk about how technology has weeded its way in and made this situation even more dangerous. So in that episode, we talk about the power of repetition, using authority figures and celebrities, emotional priming, which is doing things like with the monkey, getting you going, getting your emotions roused, or your primal drives roused, anger, fear, getting you roused. That's what priming is. It's getting you really heightened, in a heightened state, and then giving you information which you're more likely to take in without any defiance, and you're more likely to act on it. Saturation, and this is where technology really is a problem, because if you have your algorithms constantly changed to keep providing you with more and more and more, seemingly from different sources, all saying the same thing, you're getting saturated with that information from that perspective, and it may not even be correct. Required participation. I'm sure you saw the study that said, where they said 80%, at least 80% of students at universities pretend to be more left progressive than they are, because they want to get the grades and they want to be socially accepted. And so they're afraid to say, well, wait a minute, or even ask questions. They just parrot back what they're told. But that's dangerous, because your brain changes when you say things, even if you don't believe it at the time you say it. Now, here's another key point. When I talk about what I just mentioned, brainwashing no longer looks like control, it looks like participation. And it can feel really good to be part of a group where everybody has a matching hat and everybody smiles at you and you're like, yes. I mean, even disasters bring that. If you are from New York, I lived for a long time in New York. My daughter was born in New York. So when 9/11 happened, that wasn't, even though I was in California then, that wasn't over there to me. That was people I know. That was the hospital. They were evacuating people to the hospital where she was born. People felt so close to each other. The violent crime rate plummeted because there was a sense of connection between people in New York. And it plummeted for years. So that need to belong and that sense of connection is very alluring, and especially if you're smart enough to have a matching hat. Okay. So it looks like participation. It looks like I'm part of a group. I have somebody to belong to. And most, keep in mind, the reason I'm pressing this point so hard is that most of the influence tactics that are being used on all of us are hidden in plain sight. So once I show them to you, you'll recognize them, but you probably passed them by and didn't even think about it. And here's an important point at the top. Influence works best when people believe they're choosing freely. And that's what social psychology does. Social psychology does experiments to make it so people alter their beliefs and behavior and believe it was their own decision. So why? Because the human brain prioritizes emotional safety, belonging, and certainty over objective truth. Now, you know about the Asch conformity experiment, where, again, between 73 and 78% of people at least once chose a very obviously wrong answer because they had been told everybody else chose that. So people were willing to go on record supporting something they obviously knew wasn't true, like trans women are women, because they think everybody else is doing it. That's how humans are actually programmed to be. Some of us have become self-reliant enough to stand back, but it can be costly. And oh, hi, Roscoe. Roscoe is one of my favorite. He said, hi, Dr. Dina. Hi, Melinda. Welcome, Roscoe. Annette's here too. Talking about socialism and communism. Under stress, novelty, fear, or moral urgency, the brain delegates thinking. So whenever you get in a heightened state, it's natural to look around and ask yourself, who has the answer? So if somebody comes along and says, oh my goodness, that's why they like arousing you, triggering you. And then they tell you, I have the solution over here. Because you're less likely to ask questions, you're more likely to go along. Once you make a decision on a certain road, if you have any ego at all, you usually feel like you have to defend that decision. Most people are afraid to say, oh my God, I did something so stupid, because they influenced me to do it. But when we're under stress, look at that, novelty, fear, or moral urgency, the brain is designed to delegate thinking. It will outsource it to automatic processes, so stuff you normally do, how you usually handle it, the environment, or technology. Increasingly, technology is taken over there. Roscoe says he feels that way now. I need to decide Dem or Republican right away, and the other will be disastrous if I choose wrong. Choose Republican. The Democrats, they cray. Okay? All right, there we go.
Best Democrat right there.
I just can't. I look at what, thank you. He says, okay, listen, Roscoe, you got to make up your own mind. But I just can't. I mean, I look at what they stand for, the fact that they're so willing to cheat, the fact, as a Black person, I'm looking at how poor so many urban Black people still are, and yet they're spending billions of dollars giving that money to illegals so that the illegals will vote for them in the next election. So people whose ancestors helped build this country, people who've been here, whose families have been in the United States for hundreds of years, Black, white, brown, and green, okay? We're not getting help when we need it. Instead, they're handing it to somebody who snuck over the border so that they can get a vote. Now, what kind of ethics do you have to do something like that? I never trust anybody that will treat strangers better than they treat family. So, no. Okay, so everybody listen up. 3 conditions required for modern brainwashing. 1, emotional activation. I have to sometimes stop looking at my feed, especially since these algorithms changed. If I could click liked on one angry article, that's all I get for 2 days, is more things that are going to make me angry and outraged. Okay, so fear, outrage, even hope, shame, moral superiority. One of the ways I hope I present this show is that I show you the tactics, because I don't just want you not to be fooled by the left progressives. I don't want you to be fooled by anybody. So this is the aim I have. Let's go principles. Let's say these are the principles by which we live. And if someone betrays those principles, we do not support them. We don't care how they vote, whether they look like us, etc. Second, cognitive loading. So having so much information coming at us, everybody with a phone, everybody with the laptop, everybody with the tablet is getting so overloaded with information, and especially for, I would call it technology porn, like TikTok, that's designed to keep you on that platform way longer than you should be. It's information overload, constant alerts, sense of urgency. You have to do this now. The world's coming to an end. Frank Brescia says, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. My mother used to say that all the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a great saying.
And here's another thing for everybody in the audience, whether you're watching this recorded or live, let's be really careful about saying I am. Okay. Other than saying I am, unless you're talking about your religious beliefs, I am a person of these religious beliefs, or I am a person who values principles. But so often we will put a label on ourselves and we will feel like we have to act according to what the people with that label do, even if it's wrong. We'll
Absolutely.
rationalize it.
Yeah.
Once identity is involved, facts become threats. Getting and the thing is, this is being encouraged, especially among young people. But when I was young, it was the same thing. You know, you had to label yourself a feminist, or else you were considered somebody that was easily manipulated, taken advantage of. Being a feminist meant you were cool. They didn't really even strongly define what it meant, but you had to label yourself that way so that anything that came along that said, this is for feminists, you had to jump on board. So this isn't new. It's just gotten more intensive. So I just wanted to quickly go through the classic tactics and speak up, Melinda, anytime you see something you think is important. Saturation and repetition. Again, I responded to Elon when he was like, why is it when I turn on the mainstream news, it doesn't matter where in the country it comes from, they are all saying the exact same thing word for word? Because this is a really powerful way to convince someone that something is true.
What I really loved was that really clever, some very clever people put those news stories all together from all over the world and all the different networks when they were saying the exact same words, and they'd start off with 1 and then 2 and then 10 and then 50 and repeat everything over. So you could see there, and by the time it finished, there was about 100 people on the screen all saying the same thing from all over the world with exactly the same script, and you could still understand what they were saying. Absolutely magic, because of course what it did was it shone the light on how much there is no facts behind anything, that the news service is merely something that we are using, and it's a tool to tell populations all over the world what we want them to hear. There is no journalism. There's nothing backing it up. There's no substance. I mean, that's the most brilliant way to demonstrate that. And of course, then it would run on 24-hour cycles. So didn't matter whether you were listening to the radio, television, anything. This was just this saturation of exactly the same words over and over.
And your brain is designed to stop asking whether it's true. You're like looking around. Again, social proof. If all of these people are saying it, it must be true, you know?
Yeah, well, at university, we learned in marketing. So one of the first things that we learned, this is, you know, I went to uni 40 years ago, so that's a big number now. But, you know, one of the first things we learned in our marketing subject was you tell someone something once and they may or may not believe you. You tell someone something 2 or 3 times and they go, you know, it could be. And of course, you tell someone something, you know, 50 to 100 times, and by a certain amount of times that you hear it, you will absolutely 100% believe it. And that was the foundation of the marketing subject.
Well, I know that with my Unmasking the Abuser program, when I've talked to governments about rolling out the program, I've stressed this factor in learning and said, even if people find it interesting, I've had so much feedback about people saying it saved me, it changed my life, but it would be exponentially more people if we had it in more than one context. So you have to have, the more you have the same information in different contexts. So you don't just have a seminar or workshop, you also have it on posters in the bathroom. You make a little play with the topic and with the concepts and principles in that play and show it to them that way. You have to saturate and repeat the information, because then the brain is designed to take it in. And because the information that I teach with Unmasking the Abuser is key information that can absolutely keep you safe, but you need it at a time when you're actually attracted to somebody, when you're emotional about somebody. So I have to get it into the parts of the brain that wake up during those circumstances. People kept wanting me to just teach it to the logical, rational part of the brain. And I said, it won't do any good, because that part kind of goes into rest mode, into sleep mode, when somebody becomes sexually attracted or they start, liking somebody. And then it's the reason why so many times we will promise ourselves, I will never get myself into that situation again. And then the same circumstances happen and you act the same way. And then later on, you're like, what was I thinking? It's because it's different parts of the brain. Saturation and repetition, though, are powerful. Authority amplification, having people in charge, having our government tell us things, having celebrities that we admire tell us things, even though
the celebrity thing. I mean, the white celebrities that came out recently. Oh God!
But conservatives try to poo-poo this. But the reason the left keeps using all these celebrities is because it's extremely effective.
Very effective.
It's crazy. Trusted voices, and then their authority replaces verification. So the people that are buying into it because the celebrity, their favorite celebrity, says this is the way it is, or the government person that they voted for says it is, they never ask for proof. And the illusory truth effect starts to engage, that if you hear the same thing said over and over again as if it's fact, your brain will start to believe it's true with no evidence whatsoever. Our brain is not necessarily our friend. Ross says, wait a minute, no, Frank says saturation, get vaccinated. If you see something, say something. We're all in this together. Yeah.
Oh boy.
Why celebrities are leftist? Or why do you think? I have my own theories, but why do you think celebrities tend to be?
Well, I think they've also got to answer to the people in charge. The people in charge on this planet are going to employ celebrities to do their bidding for them and to give them the messages that they want to be giving them. I mean, celebrities become celebrities because they've been chosen, because they get elevated. And as part of that elevation, they have to give something back in return for that. So, I mean, typically, if you're left wing and you're a left wing bias and you're woke, you're into collectivism and it's the New World Order. You're into controlling and you're into Marxism and socialism and fascism. You're into global population control. And everything that you're talking about today is about not individualism, but it's collective brainwashing and control of people's minds. And so they are very, very effective tools. So there's probably a whole range of reasons why they jump on board. But there's, it's the collective mind and this collective mindset. I think, Dina, one of the things that comes out in everything that you say is that you have to be a certain fairly rigorous or strong personality type to be able to recognize what's going on in society and bat away these techniques that are coming at you every single day to make you think and feel a certain way. And so, I think celebrities, we all get really enamored with a really fabulous movie that we've watched, and we get really connected with characters and we get emotional responses, and then we go ahead and see what they've got to say when they're themselves and they're not in character. And if you have a fairly sort of, if you're easily influenced, if you're a certain personality type, or you it's really hard to bat away the difference with this person that I fell in love with on the screen and this same voice and this same face telling me now what I should believe in. I mean, you've got to be pretty strong to be able to bat away everything that's coming at you. And celebrities, I think, are just such an important tool for the people who are really effectively mind controlling the population and so we do the things that they do that they want us to be, so they can keep us under control.
Well, what I would say to also that when we did the shows on Why Are People Woke, we talked about the fact that J.D. Haldigan has also talked about this, that a lot of the way the world is presented is really appealing to people with cluster B personality disorders.
Absolutely, yes, of course. They are very,
one of those is narcissism, which is very prevalent among people who go into the arts. A lot of them have diagnosable narcissistic personality disorder, and add on top of that, they actually are getting paid to promote these perspectives. So
I think there's a lot of that.
The combination is bad. Now, another classic tactic is emotional priming. To do something, say something. I mean, this is why they use such strong language, calling people fascists and saying, oh, they're a phobic and they're a misogynist. They can't just say, look, he has a perspective that I disagree with. No, they have to use really extreme, scary language because they want to emotionally prime you. And then they offer the solution.
Absolutely. And no one wants to be on the receiving end of abuse. I mean, people are very fearful of that. And I can honestly say, having been on the receiving end of abuse for quite some time now, that it isn't pleasant, and it's horrible when it first starts. But if you can get it into perspective and you can hold your own, have the courage of your convictions, you will eventually come out of it and you come out the other end. But this tactics of bullying, no one wants to be bullied. I mean, it's a horrible situation. And so people are either going to fall silent or they'll fall on the other side. And, they say something, do something. I mean, you look at all of these times in history where you've needed revolutions and you've needed cultural revolutions and political and economic revolutions. And in every case, people are like, well, you know what? I just don't want to be the one that's going to be attacked. I don't want to be the one that's bullied. I'll just go along with it because I like my life. I like what's going on. And maybe I just want to be on the winning side. And the winning side is the side of the bullies at the moment, because of course bullies are often going to win because they're bullies. But eventually, I think they get found out. And I think the tide is turning now that eventually, within our sort of awakening that's happening very slowly, mind you, these tactics of emotional priming, people are starting to push back on that, and they're starting to call it out a little bit more, I'm noticing, which is good news.
Well, Frank Brescia says something that's true. The message is, if you're woke, you're a good person. If you're not, you're evil, a racist, or a Nazi, they'll say things like, if this person doesn't believe in your lifestyle, they want you to die. I mean, they want you to be scared. They want you to be aroused. And then they'll say, I'll protect you. Our party will save you. Offering the solution. That people are being so manipulated. Here's another tactic. And most people don't realize this, but I actually use this one on purpose. If I want to learn something, I told you that the studies have found that you learn material better if you're actually holding a real book rather than just having something on your screen. So if I about the growth mindset, I have the physical book, watch the videos, also get it on audio. So while I'm going out, doing my walk, doing whatever, doing housework, I'm listening, because our brain will absorb a lot of information that we are exposed to while we're moving. It's just like an environmental scan part of the brain. So it takes it all in while you're driving, walking, but you have to be careful, because the fact that your brain is so open to it, it reduces critical filtering. So you will not be as discerning as you might be otherwise. So do be careful. But if it's something positive, yes, absolutely do it while moving. But this is why that they will put banners and billboards and everything while you're driving, while you're walking. You will see stuff. If you listen to a lot of radio stations, they have constant ads going. Um, um, Roscoe said he bought Atomic Habits because of me. Hasn't read it yet. Okay, let's read it all together. We can talk about it on the show after you read it. Um, Here's another one. Super, super. Put a little circle around this one. Super, super, super powerful. Symbolism, stories, and images. Stories bypass logic. Images bypass language. They embed so deeply in your brain. It is one of the easiest ways to influence people because from time out of mind, even before they had written books, people would use storytelling to communicate valuable principles and behaviors that they wanted people to emulate, and also weave cautionary tales that showed the bad things that happen if you don't obey those rules. So keep in mind, again, it bypasses language, it bypasses logic, it bypasses intellect. So even if you're smart, it's one of the reasons I keep emphasizing, do not watch films and TV shows or read books that promote values that go against your beliefs. Because first you'll stop finding them shocking, then you'll start accepting them, and then you'll start promoting it. It's the best way to influence you. And we're only going to be able to get through the classic tactics today, but I promise, we will do the way the technology has gotten to us. We'll do that next week. But I really do, and I want to be able to have time to ask Melinda a lot of questions because her perspective is so valuable because she's a thinking person. Sorry to talk about you like you're not here, but
that's very kind.
but also because she doesn't have the formal education that I do in this. I want to make sure that what I'm saying is actually resonating with the people who are watching the show. Here's another thing that all of us are being exposed to: flashing and subthreshold messaging. I know in Jennifer Eberhardt's book, Bias, she talks about exposing people to imagery that flashed so quickly that their conscious mind didn't even pick it up. But they were actually able to see the difference in the choices people made after that had happened. And it's like those little ads that you see down the side when you're trying to, somebody has an article that you want to read and they've got this little flashy ad over here and you're trying to ignore it. But they know that even if you don't focus on it, it's still getting in and it's still influencing you. That's what I call peripheral exposure, where it's just like out of the side of it's something you pass by. The banners that you see in the shopping centers that you don't think you notice, they all have an influence. They will leave emotional residue without conscious recall. So, but when you're exposed to the concepts, you're exposed to the products, you will like them more. You're more likely to buy them. Again, Darren Brown does a whole show about using this kind of flashing and subthreshold messaging to influence his audience before they even arrive. And then he triggers it while they're there and they make these decisions and he's able to predict what they'll do because he's already primed them. He's kind of scary, interesting, but scary. And the last one, required participation. It is not harmless to have left progressive ideology promoted in our environments, in our workplaces, in our schools. Only left progressive. Never having anything conservative, nothing. I think if you're going to not, I would rather everything be much more neutral.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because if you're required to participate in an event, your boss is watching you, so you don't feel like you can be free to say that goes against my principles or goes against my beliefs. You may be required to say something, do something, cut the ribbon, light the candles on the cake, whatever it happens to be. And the moment you do something publicly, your brain will begin defending it privately. Isn't that scary?
Well, I think that there's some very interesting cases here in Australia now with this sort of required participation, because we've had in the last couple of decades in Australia, we had a guy who was Aboriginal do something for a bit of a lark in the late 90s about welcome to country. It was never ever part of Aboriginal culture, but he decided, well, because it was part of I think a Pacific culture that came here, he decided to replicate it. And all of a sudden it got embedded into some sort of reconciliation or something, or culture in Australia. Problem is, of course, is that Australians are now being welcomed to our own country with every single event that we have. And now there's massive pushback against that, because people were just doing it. And it's exactly this required participation you talk about, because they just didn't want to say anything. For all the other reasons of coercion and control that you were just talking about in today's show. But now, as people are getting sick and tired of it being welcomed to our own country, you know, as a fifth generation Australian, I belong here just as much as anybody else. You know, it's something that's really, really powerful, and it resonated with people for so many decades. And now people are pushing back, and it's coming through to the kids. So a friend of mine's grandson the other day came out. The teacher said, oh, you're going to actually do the welcome to country, you know, little Billy, when you stand up in front of the school, and we've chosen you, aren't you lucky? And before our speech, you're going to stand up on the microphone in assembly and say, welcome to country. And, you know, interestingly, because of his conservative background, because of issues, you know, that he had noticed and he was taught in the family and the values, he said no. He stood up to the teacher and the headmaster. He's only about 12 or 13 years old. And he said it's completely inappropriate to welcome Australian kids to their own country, and you'll have to choose somebody else. And the bravery of that child to stand up and move against required participation was one of the proudest moments the parents had ever had. And they knew then that's a future leader. That's someone that can actually have the courage of their convictions, and teaching kids in the next generation against this required participation was a really powerful moment for us and our friends. So we sort of hold out a little bit of hope there, but that's a really powerful one, that seventh one that you had.
Well, I noticed that every meeting that I participated in, they started off, we're coming from and they give some Aboriginal name for the place. We welcome the traditional owners, past, present, and, you know, the leaders, past, present, and future. It's like, come on. It is designed.
I mean, it's insulting. And the other thing too that's really interesting, and I noticed this with the Black population in America too, is that the full-blood Aboriginal people in Australia are deeply insulted and feel very patronised by that. And I equate it to many Black Americans who have these white people apparently showing them how their lives are. And, you know, like, I mean, who's better to tell a Black man if he's oppressed than an elitist white woman, right? You know, I mean, it's just so deeply insulting and patronizing for certain groups of people to tell other groups of people, this is how you should feel, this is what you should be doing, and we're here to fly your little flag, or whatever it is that we think that you need in your communities. And of course, now full-blood Aboriginal people in Australia who voted no against the Voice are now coming and siding with Conservatives for that very reason, because this elitism is insulting. And people jumped on the elitist bandwagon because of all the things that you've covered today in your show, because they were told to, because they were brainwashed to do it, because they were led along a path to be virtuous and self-righteous, not understanding, of course, that was exactly the opposite and the worst thing you can do for different communities that might be undergoing transformations or dealing with things that they need to deal with, including white people. So, I think people are waking up to it, and the things that you talk about today, this awareness of how people landed in that situation is very, very valuable.
Well, I would also say this, that I saw the progression from first these weird welcome to countries, who welcomes you to your own country, but also people feeling like they had to go further and further with the bowing down to the Aboriginals in every single meeting Every single gathering, there were never any Aboriginal people there, but you had to say that, that you came from, that you're, you're living in, Gadigal land, and talk about the leaders past, present. It's like, what is it? It's not out of respect for Aboriginal people. It's designed to feel white, to make white people whose ancestors built Australia into a first world nation, to make them feel guilty about being there and that they don't belong. And the reason that's done is because insecure people are easier to manipulate.
That's right.
It is not, it doesn't empower anybody.
That's right. And you hit the nail on the head. Now, every single person needs to understand that statement, that insecure people who are easily manipulated are much more easily manipulated and controlled. And this is, people who are bullied are much more easily manipulated. People who are insecure, people who are narcissists who want to show their virtue signaling, and people who are sort of self-absorbed. I mean, this is just something that I've been learning in the last sort of 6 or 7 years. Absolutely. And you have to delve into yourself and say to yourself, well, who am I? How easily have I been manipulated? And there's definitely things that, I had to front up to and go, well, you know what, that was wrong. I believed this 20 years ago. I believed it. There's about 3 or 4 major things that I was manipulated into believing. And 20 years ago, if you'd asked me about climate change, if you'd asked me about certain norms that people talk about now, I would tell you, yeah, I believe that. I believed it. I believed that vaccinations were the absolute be all and end all. And I believed that, there was nothing untoward about the medical system, the medical community, and I didn't know who owned it. I didn't understand, but I believed it because I was told. I didn't look into it. I just believed it. I was manipulated. I had to front up to that. It was uncomfortable. Hated it.
Unfortunately, though, we're going to have to end here. But please, everyone, come back next week, because next week we're going to look at how this brainwashing techniques, this indoctrination, they have used AI, they have used modern technology to shape techniques that are extremely effective, and we're all vulnerable to them. So we're going to talk about it then. And if you have any questions, contact me on X. Dr. Dina, at Dr. Dina 1 is the easiest way to get a hold of me. If you want to see all the different types of work that I do, go to my website, ethicalstrategic.com. Otherwise, you can write a question under any of the platforms where you're watching the show. You can write a question, make a comment, and we'll talk about it. And Roscoe, yes, let's plan on doing Atomic Habits after you get through it. But we're going to have to talk about the brain, because I don't want anybody to feel insecure because they've been fooled by any of this information. We are all vulnerable to it. But one of the secrets to shielding yourself is recognizing the tactic and knowing what to do when you see it, knowing to stand back from it. Don't let them push you into a rapid choice or decision in a heightened state. That's the one piece of information I would give people that can save you from so much. If you are upset, emotional, if you're in a super positive mood, if you are in a heightened state, positive or negative, do not make important choices then. Wait until you calm down. But meantime, thank you so much for being here, and I will see you all next week. Hopefully, cross fingers, Melinda, you're going to join me again next week, because we have to go through the technology. So I will see you again. Thank you. Thank you for being here, and I'll talk to you then.
Thank you so much. Bye.